Thank you guys so much. I really enjoyed all of your papers, and I'm sorry to miss the first one. I guess I have a couple of questions. First, for Jan, I was really curious, as someone who's been working and thinking about air in the 19th century, about if there was any discussion about the quality of air in the greenhouses. And this is a period where there's a lot of discussion about miasma, about what is healthy air, what is unhealthy air, and a bit like Constance's paper on water, like is there a sort of purified air, a special air that develops in these greenhouses? So that was the first question that I had. And then for Joshua, I was curious, since you're working on this new book, this sort of big sweeping book about Napoleon's regime, I was wondering if you've thought about, how this environmental perspective might disrupt some of our assumptions, some of the sort of tired narratives about the Napoleonic era. And you're kind of early in it, but I wondered if you had some initial thoughts about how projects like this on Corsica can maybe change up and really refresh what we all teach, the kind of, conquest of Moscow, and how to kind of give a different perspective from that purely sort of militaristic narrative. So, yeah.
Thank you very much for this suggestion. I'm going to answer in French if he doesn't care. Okay. La question de la circulation de l'air dans les serres, elle est vraiment omniprésente et bien plus précocement qu'on ne le pense d'ordinaire. On lit souvent effectivement dans les ouvrages d'histoire du jardinage ou d'histoire environnementale des serres que la question de l'aération se pose au 19e siècle, mais dès le 18e, en particulier dans les années 1750-1760, on a des projets de serres qui visent à réfléchir à la circulation de l'air au sein de la serre. Alors, c'est pas tant la question de l'air corrompu dans la serre, enfin en tout cas de ce que j'ai trouvé dans la documentation, c'est plus la question de répartir le plus homogènement possible, avec le plus d'homogénéité, l'air au sein de la serre. Et donc les expériences qu'on a en particulier dans les années 1750 sont souvent des échecs parce qu'on n'arrive pas, par exemple, à faire remonter suffisamment l'air chaud dans la partie supérieure de la serre. Et si on le fait trop, il y a des risques que les carreaux, les vitres se cassent. Donc ça, c'est une vraie problématique, en fait, au-delà de la question de la qualité de l'air. Et évidemment, on est dans une période où on la mesure, c'est ce qu'on appelle l'audiométrie. C'est vraiment un ensemble de techniques, de dispositifs qui visent à mesurer la qualité de l'air. Ça, on le voit dans les jardins. Et j'étais très frappé d'ailleurs de voir que cette mesure de la qualité de l'air, elle avait lieu dans un jardin-spectacle qui ouvre à Paris à la fin des années au début des années 1770. C'est un établissement qui dure 10 ans, qui s'appelle le Colisée, comme à Rome, où on organise des joutes nautiques, des feux d'artifice. Et il y a toute une controverse environnementale autour de la qualité et la salubrité de l'air du bassin du Colisée qui exhalerait des particules nocives, en particulier des résidus d'artifice, du plomb et des résidus d'artifice. Et il y a toute une expertise médicale, policière, qui est mise en place, où on utilise des techniques audiométriques. Mais à ma connaissance, on ne le fait pas vraiment pour les serres. Ce qui intéresse surtout les jardiniers, les naturalistes, c'est la question de comment circule l'air dans la serre. Et en fait, tout au long du 18e, on n'arrive pas du tout, mais même en Angleterre, au jardin de Chelsea par exemple, on n'arrive pas à stabiliser vraiment l'air au sein des serres. C'est la raison pour laquelle il y a beaucoup de végétaux qui périssent très largement. Et cette remarque est aussi valable très largement pour les serres portatives qu'on met en place. J'en ai pas parlé dans cette communication, mais il y a toutes les réflexions autour de comment assurer la circulation de l'air dans des mini-serres portatives sur les vaisseaux et les navires pour conserver les plantes dans les voyages au long cours depuis le Nouveau Monde, depuis les Mascareignes. Et on se rend compte que jusqu'à la fin du XVIIIe siècle, cette problématique n'est absolument pas résolue parce que la météorologie métrique, l'apparition d'instruments de mesure ne permet pas forcément de résoudre le débat de quelle température faut-il instituer au sein de la serre. Parce que dans une serre, on a des plantes qui viennent de Malacca, de Canton, d'Amérique du Nord, donc cette problématique climatique est très omniprésente en fait. Voilà, je ne sais pas si j'ai répondu à votre question.
Yeah, and I have a few ways to kind of answer that. One is actually that a little bit talking about, Constance talked about failure, right? And that this whole project really didn't work. And I think that can be an instructive lens can help us get away from just looking at the politics and especially the military aspects of the Revolutionary and Napoleonic eras, is to be a lot more comfortable with the stuff that didn't work. And Corsica is just a litany of stuff that didn't work. Right? There's just time and time again these moments where the French state, anyone will try, the English state will try to regenerate Corsica, and it fails over and over again. And I think looking at why it fails is instructive in pointing the narrative towards the smaller actors here, in this case the rural peasants, who are not really going to be interacting with these broader political or military themes, but instead are looking out really probably for their self-interest, looking out for their very local self-interest. And so localizing the narrative a little bit would be kind of what I'm trying to do there. And I think there's also, when I'm forecasting this global Napoleon project, one of the things that I'm trying to do is tell the story of the Napoleonic era without reference to Napoleon himself. Obviously that's facetious, I'm going to have to talk about Napoleon, but as much as is possible to decenter the narrative away from the hagiographic or even European focus on Napoleon. And so to do that, I think we have to look for these local modes of interaction, not always just framing it as resistance, but mediation. How did these local environments mediate the vast amount of changes that occurred in that period? And I think we can look at the environment for often how they end up mediating locally these changes. Yeah.
Papers, and I have too many questions for just this one, but I thought I would start with Francesca. I was interested in Palissy's discussion of sort of minerals in the environment, in the body, which seems to be very much a kind of medieval microcosm, macrocosm approach to understanding nature, combined with this interest in observation of what's going on. So I was curious about sort of what he was reading, what his education was, who he was in conversation with, to sort of both come up with these ideas, because you say he seems to be sort of something new or different that we're not seeing in earlier writings and earlier people thinking about the environment. So I was curious to know where you think it's coming from, and whether it has to do with, you know, his other work as a ceramicist as well as his Protestant identity. And I was also similarly, for Jan, interested in where these botanists who are trying to figure out how to make this environment of the greenhouse work so it doesn't fall down, so that the plants actually can grow, who are they in conversation with? Are they talking only to others sort of the same milieu? Are they talking to gardeners? Are they talking to people who might have, you know, some kind of experience that would enable them to make this a success? And finally, Constance, I was really curious about why it failed and how they tested, like whether, you said this just didn't work, right? That this water is not, this filtered water is not working. How do we know it wasn't working? How did they test it? Did people actually get sick, or, you know, or they just weren't buying it, and why they weren't buying it? So, yeah.
Good question. It's a very broad question. I'll try to be brief because we don't have a lot of time, and you've got 3 questions. The question of whether Palissy read a lot or not is central to all the commentary on him, because of course everybody's worked on him is intrigued by the fact that here's this person who sort of self-presents as an autodidact. He didn't really read books, but that's not true. We know he read books, and so. Already one of the biographies, one by Dupuis, which is pretty old already, it's 1902, was fairly thorough in documenting that. So that's why I said he did take some things from books, and then a lot of things are not. So it's very hard to do that work over and over. It's been done, but I guess somebody could do it again and make more comparisons. But there were a lot of criticism launched by modern critics, saying that he pilfered here and there. So there are parts of, we find pieces of stories that are from Pliny, and we find stories that circulate that are in other works of the time, but not that many. And so a big thing was made out of that. So the sense, a big losing perspective on the fact that plagiarism is a whole different perspective back then, and that imitating others is not considered to say bad. But the people he does recognize, usually, one of them is Vitruvius. And he's very influenced by Vitruvius. And that's one of the things you said, is a ceramicist back then? Part of it is, because we keep having trouble putting all his pieces together. And one piece that is really significant is that he was an artist. He was an artisan and he was an artist, and that distinction isn't made. So he actually was very good at reading architectural manuals and understanding the Vitruvian principles and rereading them his own way and correcting them, if you want, or inflecting them his way. So I'm not sure I'm answering you because we don't have a full answer on that. Again, it's a mix. It's not accurate to say he read nothing. He certainly read some things, but he also tried to kind of obfuscate that, and that makes it complicated. Is he medieval? I don't think so. I think when we read this connection, the symbiosis aspect, it does sound like microphone. He never uses those terms, and he explains them differently. With respect to a sort of religious eschatology, that's one way he goes, and the other way is just that he has a sort of almost pantheistic view of the impact of minerals, or what we call minerals, and he just refers to as salts, or lucid, or they said. And it permeates everything, stones, bodies, and so it's not really micro, it's sort of this all of the universe that he can know, the knowable universe. He's been talking about planets, so all the knowable universe is imbued with these substances that connect to each other or reflect each other. So I'm sorry to answer all your questions. Sorry, Jerry. Did I leave anything out? Yeah, that's it.
Thank you very much too for your question. I'm going to in French because I just want to tell that I'm absolutely sure that the formation of gardeners is increasingly better in the 18th century. I'm absolutely sure they read, for example, Richard Bradley's Calendar of Gardeners. Il y a vraiment des best-sellers comme le calendrier des jardiniers qui est réédité quasiment tous les 10 ans en France et qui est vraiment un livre qui est lu par quasiment tous les jardiniers du Jardin du Roi. Et on est vraiment certain que le niveau de formation des jardiniers eux-mêmes a vraiment augmenté, le niveau de savoir-faire a forcément augmenté parce que le fait d'acclimater des plantes d'horizons aussi lointains, aussi différents, nécessite des compétences très élargies. Et on le voit par exemple, il y a un jardinier qu'on connaît bien, parce qu'on, pour être tout à fait honnête, l'ensemble des petits jardiniers, des menus jardiniers qui travaillent au Jardin du Roi quotidiennement, on ne les a que dans les registres de comptes, donc on ne peut pas vraiment savoir ce qu'ils font. Par contre, on a un dossier très intéressant, c'est un élève qui est formé par André Thoin, qui s'appelle Joseph Martin, qui se rend à l'île de France, dans les Mascareignes, donc l'île Maurice, en 1788. Et on a toutes les instructions qui sont données par Thoin à Joseph Martin et les réponses de Joseph Martin à André Thoin. Et donc Joseph Martin a une connaissance tout à fait érudite, très exhaustive de la façon dont doivent fonctionner les serres portatives sur les navires et les vaisseaux. Donc ça, c'est clair que... mais les jardiniers ne discutent pas qu'entre eux. J'aurais voulu le montrer davantage dans ma communication, mais j'ai pas trop eu le temps, malheureusement. C'était de montrer aussi que, en fait, les riverains, les promeneurs interagissent beaucoup avec les autorités royales. Et on a des aristocrates, par exemple, qui sont très concernés par la question de la climatisation des plantes, la naturalisation. Et a choisi, par exemple, un jardin qui est moins connu, mais c'est un jardin qui est proche de Paris, où on acclimate beaucoup les ananas. À la fin du XVIIIe siècle, il y a un engouement pour les ananas et à Choisy, on a des aristocrates qui interfèrent constamment avec la direction des bâtiments en révoquant en doute, en remettant en question les savoir-faire jardiniers, en prétendant avoir leur mot à dire dans le fonctionnement des serres, et on se rend compte qu'ils ne connaissent pas forcément très bien les progrès qui se sont faits en termes de naturalisation, et donc on a des controverses et des débats qui empêchent parfois l'établissement d'une solution viable à long terme parce que les aristocrates interfèrent constamment en fait avec les politiques de naturalisation. Donc ce que j'essayais de montrer aussi dans ma thèse, c'était que en fait, la politique de naturalisation et d'acclimatation, elle ne répond pas seulement qu'à des objectifs politiques, il y a aussi des interférences avec des amateurs de botanique, des aristocrates, etc. Voilà.
So why it fell and how did we know? So how we know first is because they kind of gave up on the technology a year after, like very fairly on. And also all those little companies, and including the bigger one, they become those curiosités in Paris, and so they are reported in the guidebooks for like travelers. And so in those guidebooks, and or like in those like guides for the Parisian curiosité, they tend to describe both companies. And so in one you have a description where clearly the author say, oh yeah, it was a complete failure, their water turned so bad and so they had to give up the bottle, and then now they just deliver it the normal way, being carted basically, like water carriers. And the second thing that I didn't, so there's two things that I didn't touch so much in this paper because it's very complicated. But more and more that I'm doing the research for the dissertation, I realized that the water that is being supplied by the Seine and the water that is by the aqueduct of Arcueil and other springs in Paris, and that is being like pumped at the municipal fountains, only have one use, is drinking water. So the Parisians, they're using their wells for other purposes, but for drinking water, it's that. So which means that the water carriers, what they do is they only specialize also in drinking water. And the thing is, the historiography has always thought that the water carriers is those little métiers, they're violent, they're drunk, they're gonna screw you basically. However, I found that specifically those with the barrel and the horses, they have micro enterprise, really small businesses, but that they make profit out of it. And the only way they do that is because they create interpersonal relationship with the people they supply. So I think, and that's also why, and that's part of why those companies don't succeed, is that they would need to appear trustworthy in the Parisian eyes and destroy the water system, the water supply that exists in the water carriers. And to us today, you think like, of course, it's easy to do that. Like they have a better product, but in the eyes of the Parisian of the time, it's not. It's not necessarily a better product because drinking water is barely consumed first, and then those water carriers, they knew them. It's a personal relationship. So there is a question of trustworthy in the supply as well, or trustworthiness, I guess.
I'm sorry, I did forget a piece of your question. Who did he interact with? Yes, we know that. That is the list of people I indicated, but there are 34 people, and that was just a sampling. So he interacted with people who are botanists, who are doctors, people like Font-Réaulx, people like Bouton. So yeah, that's very important. I mean, that's probably one of the ways to understand it better is to look more at who these people were. And he interacted with the Diebold family, and wrote the big, almost the big agricultural treatise, the Maison Rustique. So definitely that.
Well, I want to thank everyone, the wonderful papers and the audience, and let's go enjoy the rest of the day.